Welcome to the Redeemer Podcast. I'm your host, Zach, and today we are talking about Redeemer's art program. Joining me are fourth year students Christelle and Samantha. If it is your first time here, make sure to like and subscribe, share with a friend, and check out some of our other episodes that explore various aspects of Redeemer, Christian education, and so much more. Thank you for making us part of your day. And with that, here we go. Here we go, another episode of the Redeemer University podcast. I'm always excited about every episode, but this one is one I've been waiting to do for a long time. I am pleased to welcome in Sam and Christelle. Girls, welcome to the Redeemer podcast. Are you guys ready to talk about some art?
So excited. Yeah. Can't wait.
Yeah. Redeemer's art program is definitely one of the unique programs at Redeemer. And maybe let's start off. Could I get each of you to introduce yourselves, what exactly you're studying at Redeemer, what year you're in, just so that our viewers know?
Yeah, for sure. You go first. Okay. So my name is Christelle. I'm a fourth year and I'm a psychology and art major.
Mm-hmm. I'm Sam. I'm also a psychology and art double major, and then I have a minor in English writing.
Mm-hmm. Okay, very cool. And is it safe to assume you guys have had a lot of classes together?
Yes.
Yeah. That's actually how we became friends.
Yep. That's why we're here. Yeah.
Oh, fair enough. Well, Sam, let's maybe start with you. Why did you choose Redeemer and why specifically study art?
Yeah, good question. I think the reason for studying art would come from just like my family is super artistic. It's always been something I'm interested in, like kind of just growing up. That's the world I grew up in. I actually didn't take art in high school at all because it wasn't an option, just because small local Christian high school things. But yeah, I ended up choosing Redeemer basically solely based on the fact that I wanted to study art at a Christian institution, and Redeemer was the most local one. So I had always been interested in going to Redeemer, and then I heard about their art program and was like, sign me up. That sounds good.
Cool. And to just follow that up, would you say, is there a specific kind of art that you kind of specialize in, like canvas painting or like acrylic?
Yeah, definitely not when I went into the program, but now, like almost 4 years later, I'm definitely more of a oil painter. Like when I do my own things for other people, it's more like watercolor. But yeah, oil painting, I'd say, or like installation work has been kind of my track. Yeah.
Cool. Very cool. Mm-hmm. And Christelle, what about yourself? How did you hear about Redeemer? Why did you choose it, and why art specifically?
Okay, so, well, to start off, I am an international student, so Redeemer isn't local for me. I am Indian by heritage, and then I'm born and raised in the United Arab Emirates, so a little far away. And just the way I found Redeemer was through the internet. I was looking at Canada, God put Canada on my heart, and I was also aiming to be a little close to family because I have a brother in the US. And so I just found Redeemer online, specifically looking for Christian schools. So that's how I found Redeemer. And then regarding art, I actually didn't anticipate art being playing such a big role in my program. So I applied to Redeemer and got in being a psychology major and art minor. And then only in second or third year, I had just taken so many art courses that I didn't really need for my minor, but it had just interested me so much. And Phil Irish, our art professor, who runs the entire art program, just became like a really vital like person in that process of discovering my real love for art. And I was like, maybe I could step it up. And so I that's when I considered switching to a double major. And the reason I took art in the first place as a minor, similar to Sam, pretty artistic family, and I grew up doing lots of arts and crafts. Never took it seriously, but I knew that was an outlet for me. So it was cool to actually take art as a class and learn the technical side to things. Coming to Redeemer.
Oh wow! Okay, so you both have very dramatic, different stories to how you came. And, that's great. That's what we want to explore in today's episode. Chris,
Mhm.
would just to follow up you, would you say that you're also into oil painting, or is kind of has your art, skills changed?
Okay, so similar to Sam, I really enjoy working with oil paints as well. I would add acrylic in there too. In my last project, I found using both paints and kind of working with them together, and also found objects. I've found a lot of joy in just using random wood and using random string to make something. And so yeah, Sam's giggling because I usually am the one with like, I just found tons of plates and now I'm gonna break them up.
Yeah.
So I would say found objects is also a big part of what I like using. Yeah.
Okay, very cool. And before we go on to the next question, just to follow it up, can you give some maybe context, like what are some of the other art mediums that Redeemer art students practice on? Like, 'cause I know some are really into like digital art, or
Yeah.
you mentioned oil or acrylic, but what are some of the other things?
Okay, I'll list a few and then maybe Sam can see if
Yeah.
I missed any. I would say so watercolors, ink, acrylic, oils, yeah, digital stuff like you said. Um,
Yeah, like
that's
installation I kind of mentioned before, that's pretty broad, but that's
yeah.
also like some people more like sculptural works kind of a thing.
We had one of our peers used copper and like copper wires, so that would kind of be under found art and installation art. Yeah.
Or like
So
rust,
yeah.
like creating art out of that. Yeah. Yeah,
Mhm.
very interesting. People are super creative.
Yeah. But those are
Uh,
like the five, six like main ones.
Yeah, I
Very
would say.
cool, very cool. And let's maybe talk a little bit about the journey here, because you're both fourth year art students, correct?
Correct.
So could you maybe start with, and Sam, will maybe start with you. What did the first year in the art program look like? And then, could you maybe talk about your journey as an artist, even of how you kind of grew from, second year, third year, and now to where you are in fourth year?
Yeah, definitely. So it's interesting. I actually didn't get into any of the art classes and like right at the start of my first year, like over the summer when I was planning out my courses. It was originally a minor for me, like Chris, same thing as Christelle. So yeah, I ended up switching halfway through the first day to an art class. So I came in late and was just like, okay, a little bit nervous to show up late as a first year to my first class of the week. So yeah, I think yeah, I mean, there's lots of things I could say. I feel like the main thing I would say over the 4 years would just be like growing in my confidence to express things that are super personal to me in my art. Um, the first classes, like in your first year, are more geared towards like how do you draw and how do you paint? Like, what are the basics for that? So there's not as much room for personal expression, and you're also a first year and kind of nervous to talk about different things. But I'd say now coming into like even last year or the year before, it was like a couple of big projects that were like, whoa, this I'm like thinking about it all the time. Like it feels like it's intertwined into like my devotions and my daily like conversations with friends. I'm like, oh, I can make art out of that. I can express that in my studio later on. So I think that would probably be the biggest growth for me, just confidence in that way. Um, Now I'm actually the teacher's assistant for Phil Irish, the art
Oh, cool.
professor. So I help with the first year courses. We're doing painting right now, so it's just a lot of like there's different skill sets. Some people come from like they know everything, and some people it's like just an elective and they want to try to do something fun. So it's just kind of working with different skill sets, and yeah, that also has helped me to see a whole different side of the art program, and even to get to know Phil better, and yeah, understand how Redeemer works that way. Yeah.
Very cool. And Crystal, I'm curious. Would you describe your experience different, from first year, second year, third year, fourth year?
I think a lot of similarities to Sam in regards to just how much I was willing to share. I also did my very first semester of first year online. So I was on like my bedroom floor, just trying to draw and use charcoals and making everything black. And
Yeah.
so that was not the most like ideal space or like conditions to create art. And I definitely started out very timid, just like because personally art was always just a fun craft. So I think confidence was a big part in growth and growing as Phil kind of walked with us through this process of, yeah, finding yourself, realizing that like you're likely to create art that's very personal to you, and it takes a lot of courage and confidence to do that and be willing to be like, this is what I made, now you guys can critique it and talk about it however you'd like. So I think becoming comfortable with that discomfort was big in that process. I think I also very quickly learned that drawing is not really my thing. I
Okay.
took that, yeah. Funnily enough, like I can sketch in the little doodles and stuff, but I find I'm more confident in the painting side of things. So that was a funny
Interesting.
realization. Like, I love art. I'm an art major. Oh, I'm not the best at drawing. So, um, but yeah, so that was also a funny realization. And I think also Sam and I agree with this. I know I can speak for her because we both have developed a quite close relationship with Phil. And he's played a major role in falling in love with the art program at Redeemer. And I think I can confidently say that, like, my relationship with even switching from a minor to a major and just the way that I approach art making would be a lot different if it wasn't for Phil.
Yeah.
What he's just we're just hyping him up here, but
Yeah.
but it's true.
Shout out
Yeah.
Phil Irish. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, so shout out to him. Yeah,
Mhm.
there's a lot of answers to this question, but I think that's what I would say.
I think if I can add on to that too, like kind of from what I said before, another big thing about the art program that's helpful is that you make a lot of connections with different people. Like
Yeah.
Redeemer has a gallery that we there. I don't know how many shows there are per
Many.
year. There's a few,
Yeah.
but you like
Yeah.
we yeah, we get opportunity to meet the artists like when they're
Mhm.
installing the work and when they take it down, and there's gallery openings that you can go and talk to them about their work, so you make that connection. Phil is also an artist himself who has connections there, so he knows like, oh, like if you're interested in digital work, I have these 5 people you should talk to, or
Yeah.
this book you should read. um, and there's lots of like, we go on a field trip every semester, and I think just that way I think I've grown too, is like just in knowledge of like, wow, there's so much more out there than just drawing and painting. Like
Yeah.
there's always a way for you to express your art depending on what skills you have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think. Sorry, maybe we're going off tangent, but
No, do it. Do it. This is great. I love this.
I think it's also just reminding me just the way that I perceived art and also the way that it's graded. Like, yes, it's very
Mm.
subjective, but there are guidelines, there is a rubric, and it's being graded by Phil, and of course, that's through his lens. But it was really cool to learn all of the technicalities that contribute to good art making and making something that gets an A. I think I don't know. I think it's maybe some people have this misconception that like you can put a shoe on a table and that's art, and and then you can get an A+ on it because whatever you create is art. And yeah, there's the different ways to tackle something like that. But I think just personally, it was cool to learn that there are so many technical things that contribute to a good piece or like a good work of art. Um, and Phil has also just done a good job at like being hard on us sometimes and being
Yeah.
like, no, you're gonna get a B- on that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because of this. And so yeah, that has also been a cool learning experience. But yeah.
Well, and it's interesting you bring that up because, and again, I've been out of Redeemer for a while now, but I do recall in my 4 years there as a student having a number of friends that were in the art program, and
Mhm.
something that they would talk about is like learning to critique each other well, and
Yeah.
like, and I think distinctly I remember them talking about like, and I love one of the reasons I love that I get to do this, this show is because I get to hear intelligent people talk about things that they're intelligent about. And I remember art students specifically saying how like in their first year they really used to get kind of obsessive over the critical like talking points of like a blending technique or something like
Right.
that, where
Yeah.
later on you get more into the subject nature of art and like the
Mm.
story being told or like the
Mhm.
specific technique used to do a certain art piece. And
Yeah.
Yeah.
that's something I always found really interesting about the art program. And
Mhm.
would you say that's kind of your experience in your growth throughout the program?
Totally. Do you want to take this one first?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sure.
I think, yeah, what that makes me think of is so now Christelle and I, since we're in our last semester of our fourth year, we're doing our final show.
Yeah.
So there's 7 of us, I think, in the studio right now. And beginning of April, we'll all put up our work in the gallery. It's funny because that makes me think of it because Phil is kind of like at the start of when you're in first and second year, it's a lot more like, okay, these are the guidelines you need to follow. Here's what I'm like requiring your skills, like what skills for you to learn. Whereas now he's like, like I've been telling you all 3 years to like not use like high chroma colors or something. And he's like, if that's what you want to do, then just do it. Like,
Yeah.
it's like kind of like just don't really care about what
Mhm.
Phil's preferences are, what like guidelines have been set out before. It's like we know that now.
Yeah.
How do you go forward and make something that is personal to you and expresses who you are? So I'd say, yeah, I think throughout the 4 years, that kind of answers the question that,
Mhm.
Yeah.
learning to like, okay, yes, I want to get a good grade on this, but that doesn't mean you have to do ABC. That looks like a lot of different things.
Yeah, it's true.
And learning to be more creative
Mhm.
in those guidelines, I think.
Yeah.
Very cool. Yeah.
Yeah. I'll go.
Yeah. Go ahead. No, go ahead. Yeah, I'm interrupted. Sorry.
Yeah, it's also just been cool to, like Sam said, compared to maybe critique in first year to now, there's so much that we know about our peers that's personal and like vulnerable. And it's understood that it stays in that room. But yeah, that would have never, I didn't experience that in first year. It was more like, okay, you could have, yeah, blended that more or used a different color, or you could have added that to make it better. But now there's also understanding that like Sam said, yeah, there are certain things that you can do to get a good grade, but there's also so much value and beauty in like making it personal. And it looks a certain way, or it has a certain mark on that piece of paper because it was made specifically by Sam, or it was made specifically by Jubilee, one of our friends. So I think that's also just it's been cool to understand like there's a lot of, I don't know, that's important.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of value to that.
And I think a huge part of that is what you said to build off of that is like, and maybe we'll get to this later too, but another great thing about the art department is how tight of a community you have. Like we're working with 7 people in one room right now. There's no class times. You're just kind of there when you are. And we all know each other quite well from the past 4 years. So yeah, it's like when it comes to critique, it's not as much about like, oh, like this is objectively how that line should look. It's like, no, okay, I know so-and-so's story. I know what materials they like. I know what skill sets they have. So it's like, okay, taking that into account.
Yeah.
What does this art piece mean to them? And what does it mean to me as like an objective viewer? So like what you said, it's a lot more about the narrative value, I would say, as you go throughout the years and just learn that language, like what it means. Yeah.
Very cool. And kind of transitioning from that, being that you guys are fourth year students, and the idea what you're looking to do with in the future with your art knowledge and your art degree.
I would like to go into art therapy.
Cool.
Yeah, so kind of completely combining psychology and art. Counseling is also something I've thought about, but I would really like to do art therapy. I think specifically for kids who find themselves struggling to verbalize their emotions, or even adults. But I think I truly have a heart for kids, and it would be such a blessing to be able to combine those two things. So yeah.
Very cool. Yeah.
I'd say for myself, very similar. I'm also like, I think the logical thing is art therapy too. And it's something I've more recently become interested in and excited about. I would say for right now, my trajectory is more towards teaching, like high school students. I think being a TA in the art department has really inspired me in that way. It's like, oh, I actually love doing this. I love sharing what I've learned and having the artistic skills to show like what I'm asking students to do. And I think it's just, it's interesting. And I would just love to be able to do that in the future for sure. Yeah.
Thank you both for sharing, and kind of moving on to our next question. I want to preface a little bit. I talk about the art program with prospective students when I'm on the road or at high schools or visiting with parents and things like that. And
Mhm.
I think sometimes people don't recognize how special Redeemer's art program is. To
Mm.
have an art program at a Christian university studying from a Christian worldview, what has that meant for you guys going through this for 4 years?
Hmm.
Hmm.
Wow.
You want to go?
Good question, Zach.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a good question.
um, honestly, I think, wow. I'm just putting my thoughts together.
Hmm.
I think the most rewarding thing has been how much I've been able to integrate my faith into what I'm creating. Sam briefly mentioned we do devotions before Phil pitches us our next assignment. We spend maybe like 20, 30 minutes reading scripture and sharing what we think about it and how it relates to what we're about to create. And I think that in itself is a great example of what it means to do art at a Christian school, because it perfectly combines like our faith and our belief in God and what it means to actually have that play out into our lives in every aspect, including art making. So I think even from first year, seeing the growth in myself of like, instead of seeing it, oh, there's this assignment that I have to do and just like try to whip something out, now to be more mindful that everything can be, that whole process can be my devotion and me spending time with God. And it can be a meditative process, even as I am stressed about figuring out my art exhibit, like the process of the process of making sketches and drawing it back to scripture that's inspiring me. I think all of those little things combine to make it like such a beautiful thing to do art at a Christian school, and also have a professor that like draws us back to that all the time.
Hmm.
Like we're not just here to get again like a good grade on it, or yeah, and like be able to say that we're art majors, but also first and foremost we are Christians, and yeah,
Mhm.
that's an important thing to tie back into our art making process.
Definitely. Yeah, and building off of that, I would say kind of what I mentioned before about the importance of the community to Redeemer. Like I think that's I don't know, a selling point in general for the school, but I think specifically when it gets to the art program, it's a lot smaller. Like we're growing and it's collecting people over the years, but like I said, our class right now has 7 people in it, which is actually bigger than
Yeah.
it has been.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think just like something super interesting is I think art really highlights our uniqueness and like our unique gifts and abilities.
Mhm.
So then to be able to be in a room with 7 people and whatever more people throughout the years that are so different from each other and the way that they like, for example, one of our projects would be to try to show basically like an attribute of God. Like, how would you describe that, or the inability to do so? Those art projects, like none of them look anything like each other. Like we all come with such unique perspectives, um, and I think that's part of it too. Is a lot of the projects are centered around the gospel. Like, okay, how do you express this? Something that you're passionate about. How do you show that? Um, so I think that's like a really beautiful part about Redeemer's program, and also just that there is no like era of judgment or like it's not focused on being really good at art. It's not focused on okay, this is the guidelines for what you should be talking about. It's like, no, if you have something you believe differently than me, then please talk to me about it. Like, let's have a conversation. How do you I think art just opens up those conversations in a unique way than like an academic classroom would. And I think that that's just a really cool part. Phil has a huge role in that, obviously. Like, he's really good at facilitating and pushing us, not only in our skills, but also in how we think about art and our process, like making it meditative and making it worship, and just how that's so biblical. And that's, part of our Christians. Yeah.
Yeah,
I,
I will say.
yeah, go ahead. You said I just wanted. Let me actually before I have to say this. I love that Redeemer. It can be a place for young, talented Christian artists to develop their skills, but also express their faith and grow in their faith by the sounds of what you ladies have shared today.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you have something to add, Christelle?
Right. I forgot. Oh, I think I was just gonna say, like, adding to that, yeah, the art studio has been like one of the safest places that I found to share more things about like my culture and like what it means to be an
Mm,
international student at like a predominantly white school. And it's just been one of the nicest spaces to get honest about that and
yeah.
show it through my art and know that like um, I can show this and it will be received well and it'll be
Mm-hmm.
received with encouragement and curiosity and yeah, so far from judgment or I
Mm-hmm.
don't know. Yeah, so that I think was just like a good example of what it really means to be in a Christian space and also make art at the same time. Yeah.
Definitely. Oh, okay. Well, let's kind of move on. My next question for you guys is, and you've already
Mm-hmm.
highlighted some of these, but what have been some of your favorite parts about the program?
Hmm.
Hmm.
Well, like the New York trip is
Yeah.
has been big for
New
us.
York
We
trip.
so the
Tell me
art
about that.
the art department goes on a New York trip every 2 years. And so Sam and I were on that trip in our second year. And it was just such a wonderful experience to be on that trip with a bunch of our friends who do art and seek out cool things. We went to the Met and it, yeah,
Yeah.
and hung out with Phil and got to see a different side of also him being an artist and showing us different things. That was one of my favorite like experiences. Just like, yeah, I'm an art student at Redeemer, and we went to New York, and that was awesome.
Yeah.
Um,
Very inspiring for sure. Yeah.
So that's like one of the big things that comes to mind immediately. But I think it's like a combination of what we've shared so far. Just like the ability to make art in a safe space and journey with Phil and ourselves and our spiritual walk with Christ. Um,
Hmm.
yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I think something that I thought of too is just I don't know what the word is, but like our program is very like um I don't know what the word is, but like we can contribute a lot to how it functions. Like
Oh,
if
yeah.
there's something in the studio, like a material that we want or like that we want to experiment with, then it's like, oh, just talk to Phil or just talk to whoever, and it's like we can make that happen. And yeah, if there's like somebody we want to see in the gallery or if there's someone we want to come talk to our class, like it's
Yeah.
very like you can give feedback and it happens. Like I think because the art program is so like it's growing so much right now too, it encourages that.
Cool.
So I think it's just cool. Like it feels like I've said it many times now, but it feels like such a community, and it's
Yeah.
like it just feels so different from the other classes I've taken
Mhm.
to at Redeemer. Not that they're bad, but just that it's just different and
Yeah.
it's fun. It's like yeah, it's just a really cool experience to be part of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I would agree. And I think that's part of the beauty of going to a small school. Like there are many perks I think that people
Yeah.
are not aware of. Just having even we've said so many times now the fact that we do have a close relationship with our art professor and he knows a lot about our personal life
Mhm.
and yeah, that's I feel like that's unique. And that comes with having a small class size and not having that many people. But
Yeah, so you're like, and just even accountability to like a small
Mm.
group of
Yeah.
like a community where they're like, okay, like even we know you can do better than that. Like we know you
Mhm.
haven't put your full effort into something. Like what's going
Yeah.
on? Like just yeah, you feel held to a certain standard, which is good, and it pushes you to do better and to
Yeah.
try new things. And oh, maybe this person has access to something that I don't, and
Yeah.
it's just really cool.
That is really cool. It sounds like you guys have a community of people that are like-minded and they encourage you to pursue excellence in your art as well.
Yes,
It's true.
Yeah.
I would say so. Yeah.
Very cool. We've got the point of the episode where this is one of my favorite things. Do you guys have any like funny or fun, unique stories from the program that like you guys will just randomly like look at each other and like, oh, that thing happened and it's an inside joke or something?
Hmm.
Oh,
like Phil has a lot of just funny quirks about him.
Mhm.
So there are. I'm not gonna out him.
Yeah, we could make a list. Yeah.
we could. But I will share. Like he just has a lot of quirks about him that all of us are very now accustomed to and used to. So kind of we expect
Okay.
it or predict that he's gonna say a certain thing. So for example, at our last art critique, we actually made a bingo of things that he says or
No
or things.
way.
Yeah, or
Favorite
like
topics.
mannerisms or like a dance move. And we made a bingo out of all of it because we were like, he's gonna do it in the next like 3 hours of our critique.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I'm getting piercings in New York.
Oh yeah, that
Yeah.
was pretty cool too.
Do you want to share?
No, you go ahead.
When we were in New York, we were feeling quite just spontaneous and we wanted to do a fun thing. So
Okay.
on our kind of like free day, me, Sam, and two other friends ended up walking into a tattoo and piercing store and we all got piercings.
Oh, wow.
I've never even considered the piercing that I have before until we went.
Yeah. So
Yep.
nothing crazy, but yeah, that's where I got my nose piercing
Yeah.
and Sam got mine.
Ear piercing.
Yeah.
Okay, wow.
We kind of like make jokes about it sometimes because we're like, hey, don't take us to New York again. You don't know what we're gonna get next time. So
Yeah.
that's kind of fun. Yeah. But
Yeah.
Okay, wow.
Um,
That's okay, New York. Oh man.
yeah.
I feel like there's
Sam?
so many like little things too. Like we have so many inside jokes from
It's
like
true.
just because we're together so much and like I mean there's been times where we're in illustrative class and I think there was like 3 or 4 of us in the studio until 4 in the morning.
Right.
Just
Yeah.
like we weren't talking anymore by the end of it because we were so tired and upset that because the project was due the next morning and we were just trying to get it done. And I think just there's lots of times like that where many things happen and it's just fun to do those things together.
Or like exactly, like bond over our tendencies to procrastinate and then we're all finding ourselves in the studio at an odd time like that and we're like
begging security to let us stay until the morning.
Yeah.
But that's cool that you can do that. Like you can have that, you know, that is something you can only get at a small school, that's for sure.
It's true.
It's true.
Well, this has been a lot of fun. I've really enjoyed learning more about the art program. Final question. What advice would you guys have for students that are in high school or maybe they're at another college or university, but they're considering coming to Redeemer? So advice for prospective students that are considering the art program.
I can go.
Yeah.
I think maybe I would say expect to get personal. I think at some point, I mean, depending on the type of art they tend to make, but at some point in your university career, being in the art program, you're likely to make something that's extremely personal to you, to family, to friends, and that's quite vulnerable. And I think sometimes people can shy away from that or just tense up and be like, no, I'm not, I'm just going to make something that's not personal or, but there's so much beauty in that. And I think, I don't know, I found myself just hesitating and making art in that regard or, that falls under that category, but realize that there's so much value in that. And it adds to spiritual growth and adds to just growth as a human being. So I think just expect to get personal and embrace that discomfort.
Yeah, and I would like kind of to add on to that. I know this is like a general thing for most things in life, but you're going to get as much out of it as you put into it. So like if you're whatever, just taking it for a fun elective because you think it's easy, then you're not going to get much out of it. Your grades are going to reflect that too. Yeah. I think one thing is for anyone thinking about coming to the art program, first of all, please do. It's awesome.
Yes.
And it's honestly been so huge in my faith life and just really shaped my last 4 years hugely.
Yeah.
And it's like if you're willing to put in the time in the studio, first of all, but also the time to like get to know your peers, like understand their backgrounds and where they come from and the unique things that they bring to the studio, and then your professor and all the other art professors that do more lecture things. And I don't know, I think it's just it's Redeemer in general. There's lots of opportunities to get out of it and just to put the time and the effort in. and it will be a huge blessing.
Yeah.
Can pretty much guarantee that.
What she said.
Yeah.
Very cool. Thanks for sharing. And I'm sorry, I just remembered. I can't believe we haven't talked about this, but we touched on it a little bit earlier. You mentioned it. Can people come to the senior art gala?
Yes.
Yes, April 5th. Come to
At
the art gallery at
7 p.m.
Yes, at 7 p.m.
Yeah.
You will see really cool work, hopefully.
We don't know what it is yet,
No.
but it will be cool.
Yes, but all are welcome. It is open to the community.
And yeah, please do come.
Awesome. Yeah, I know that's one of the highlight events for not just the art program, but all of Redeemer every single year is seeing what, the fantastic art, the senior thesis projects have been going on. I've been very blessed by the art there. And I look forward to seeing both of your works there this year. I'm excited to see what you guys do.
We're also looking forward to it.
Yes.
Because I'm sure you guys are well ahead of schedule on those and things like that.
Totally.
Yes.
Actually, my whole exhibit is made already.
Yeah,
I'm done.
So if I come right now, I can come see it.
Let's take a rain check.
Yeah. Okay. Sam, Christelle, thank you so much for taking the time to record this episode of the Redeemer podcast. You guys have been amazing. And if you are watching this and you're considering Redeemer's art program, we encourage you to apply. Check out our website, redeemer.ca, and you'll come for a visit. But of course, if you have any questions, you can contact us at admissions@redeemer.ca, and we'd be happy to check in. Sam, Christelle, thank you again so much.
No worries at all.
Thanks for
Thank
having
you.
us.
Yeah, you've been a great host.
God bless, and we will see you in the next episode.